There's always been interesting Pokemon titles that aren't specifically mainline titles. Pokemon Colosseum as well as XD Gale of Darkness are the first Pokemon console games. They're different from the traditional Pokemon RPGs that you've had in the past. It's all double battle and it's way more of a traditional RPG setting as opposed to a regular old Pokemon title. Then we got other interesting titles like Pokemon Conquest, where the setting takes place in old-timey Japan with the samurai and the Shogun and Nobunaga. I could just be wrong on that front. Correct me if I am, I'm sorry. Why fact check when you can just say whatever? However, I do think the most interesting first-party Pokemon title to drop is Pokkén Tournament. Now, first of all, I do want to say, before we even get into this game, it should have been called Pokkén, simply because, one, it sounds better. 2, the naming convention is based off of Tekken, considering that Bandai Namco had a hand in working on this game, and Bandai Namco are known for the Tekken game. Pokkén, Tekken, that I feel like it was just right there. I don't understand why the tournament had to be slipped in there, unless it could have been mistaken as something else completely. I think the reason why this game is so interesting is because it is not just Pokemon Tekken. It has the 3D arena mechanics of, let's say, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, or any other anime arena fighter that you could think of during this time. Kill a Kill If. I don't know, My Hero Academia. That exists. However, after you hit enough times, all of a sudden, it becomes in the plane of a traditional 2D style fighting game. And I just think that this shift system of transitioning between full-on 3D fighting game to traditional 2D fighting game is well implemented, but confusing as to why it exists, in my eyes. It's possible the plan here was to incorporate a mix of both styles to appeal to both audiences, to go, hey, we're making something unique by combining the two styles that you're familiar with, or if you would prefer this style, you'd have to hit them in the previous style to get them in the one you're familiar with. The 3D arena aspect of it is pretty responsive. You move in all 8 directions. Your buttons don't change, just the moves do, because now you're working from certain distances, and your goal is to approach your opponent from said distances. Close range only characters like Machamp now has to figure out how to get in on you to go from the 3D transition to the 2D transition, where it is more in Machamp's favor. However, characters like Chandelure benefits better from being at a distance rather than being up close. Keep away characters, am I right? That being said, I think the gameplay itself, it's pretty solid, all things considered. Combos flow naturally. I think the timing of it is a little bit finicky because it's not immediately pressing one button into another button for a link. It is, you gotta press a button, you gotta correctly time in the next input to get the exact follow-up that you're looking for. And if you're not quite familiar with how the game controls, there is a trial mode.
Holy hell, there are actual combos.
Yes, there are. Okay, does this look familiar? Does this look familiar to you?
I forgot Pikachu's a Mishima.
Yeah. And because of the trial mode, you can get a better understanding of the game's work, not just how a character can do whatever combo the game wants you to know. Pokkén's very easy to understand, but difficult to master because there are a lot that you gotta account for. You can tell a lot of thought was put into this game given how the mechanics seem to work, because on top of the trial mode, oh god, it had a 3-on-3 King of Fighters mode, which is, hey, you pick 3 Pokemon. You get to choose the order in which the Pokemon come out. If you beat one of your opponent's Pokemon, they bring in the next. If that person's Pokemon beats yours, you bring out the next. It's King of Fighters. Debatably, you could just say it's a Pokemon battle where it's 3-on-3. But I think saying King of Fighters is funnier. This is just KOF.
It's literally, oh, I am down with this. I am down with Pokemon KOF.
On top of the transitioning between 3D to 2D, there are also assists, meaning that you can now incorporate separate Pokemon into the moveset for either an assist, a way to get the opponent off you, a way for yourself to benefit in some way. This game has a lot to it. I think people still play it to this day. I've recently seen content in regards to this game about them playing online. I didn't look too deep into this, but I have no idea if the netcode for Pokkén Tournament was good. And this is from an era where the push for rollback netcode wasn't really as hard as it is now, pre-pandemic. So I'm thinking the regular old Pokkén Tournament online netcode is decent at best. I do believe that there was a way for Pokkén Tournament to have proper working rollback netcode, all of a sudden, I bet people would be giving this game a shot, or at least a huge chance. And why wouldn't you give this game a shot? Look at this roster right here. You got the ones you would expect: Charizard, Pikachu, Mewtwo, Lucario, and then you also got weirdos like Gengar, Sceptile, Krogunk. This is a big roster with a variety of characters that's not all obvious picks. Suicune's on here. I respect the diversity, and I think as a fighting game enjoyer, having a diverse roster of characters you would expect and weirdos is a good mix of a roster. I believe if this game came out any later in its time period, Urshifu would have been playable 100%, no doubt in my mind. As well as Incineroar, those two would have been fun to play in a game like this. Did you know that this was a Wii U title on top of it being an arcade title? And it even had its own custom controller to match how the gameplay was, which was a D-pad, some buttons and triggers. It was an official Pokkén Tournament controller. I don't think it being on the Wii U helped it at all, and in arcades, I believe it was Japan exclusive. So hard to really get the popularity train going. Plus, it's a fighting game. You know how fighting games can get. They're good for a while, but only last based on how the community treats it, as well as the updates that the devs give it, which I believe it was surviving for a decent amount of time before hardly anyone plays it anymore. Dude, it got main stage at EVO one year, and I just think that's cool. I think it also got main stage at Japan EVO. However, in comparison, I think that might have been expected at the time, but for sure, I do remember that Pokkén Tournament got EVO in the States. And I just think that was pretty cool, even if it was for 1 year. What made the Switch version so different? Well, the Switch version's base roster had characters from the arcade version. The inclusion of arcade characters in the Switch version of Pokkén Tournament, I believe, was a good call. However, despite those new additions to the base roster, there was still DLC dropping for Pokkén Tournament. Now, mind you, this Wii U title that dropped in 2015-ish was now being priced at Nintendo's typical $60 for the re-release of Pokkén Tournament DX. To add the DLC on top of that for about another $20 meant that you would be spending around $80 for the base game and everything it includes, as well as the waves of DLC, which I believe were 2 new characters of Blastoise and someone else I don't recall, and then a couple of assists and whatever else that came with avatar customization or whatever. I didn't bring up avatar customization because it exists, that's it. And I think considering all the time that's passed, there's no reason to spend $80 on Pokkén Tournament. This would be the perfect $20 fighting game that you would expect to get after years of content and a low player base. Because whenever games reach a certain point of we're about to move on to the next one, or at least move on to something else, it goes, hey, Game of the Year edition. Every DLC that's dropped, here it is. It's 20 bucks. Go have fun. If you go online, you're likely getting destroyed because people who've been here since day one haven't stopped playing. Yeah, man, it's just paying $80 for this nowadays wouldn't be worth it. Spending 20 bucks to get everything and give it a shot, you may not be playing it that long anyway, but it would still be a much better experience than committing to the full 80. For instance, Virtua Fighter 5 Revo dropped, and it's 20 bucks. It's 20 bucks for the quintessential Virtua Fighter experience on modern platforms. Steam. I'm keeping that take. I don't know why, I just randomly thought about Pokkén Tournament because I played it with a friend a while back, Ignorant Rizzy, and I stole some of his quotes for this video. He won't mind.
Hi, I'm here. This game looks a lot better than I expected, honestly.
Correct. And I'm reminded of how fun of a game it was and being upset about how it wouldn't really last that long, because sometimes that's how fighting games are, but it was still fun. This was a solid fighting game with not a lot of content aside from combat. It had a story mode or something if I recall correctly. It exists. You get it to unlock Shadow Mewtwo if I recall correctly. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really do all that. I don't even think the Switch version had that criteria. It was only a Wii U thing, if I'm remembering correctly. Look, if you are a Pokkén head or whatever you would call yourself in that community, feel free to correct any information that I've stated. I clearly didn't do that much research into it. I just wanted to talk about Pokkén Tournament. I just think the game was good. I think the game was a lot of fun. And if Nintendo were to take another crack at a Pokemon fighting game, I would expect it to be Pokkén 2. I think it would do better as long as they add a rollback netcode, because good online helps the game survive. And I think because it's a Pokemon title, adding funny mini games would be a nice addition. Something like, oh, there's a 3D mode where you have to shoot the targets. Oh, there's a 2D mode where you have to combo a Sudowoodo until its guard broken or something. Just little mini games to have people get a better understanding of the mechanics. Is there an arcade mode? This sounds like a stupid question. I actually don't remember if there's an arcade mode. Just some standard inclusions of typical fighting game editions would be nice for short term. You know what? You know how Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has stuff like raid bosses and stuff? Imagine that, but for Pokkén. No, it's Dragon Ball FighterZ raid stuff. Do stuff like that. You can have your 3 Pokemon go against whatever the main Pokemon you're attacking. You only have 1 assist per character to commit to, and then just beat on the raid boss. Or at least go through the series of Pokemon that relate to the raid boss and then get to the raid boss and beat him. Pokkén Tournament was fun, man. I don't know what you want from me. That's it. I just want to say Pokkén Tournament was fun. If it came back at any capacity, I think that'd be nice. I think it should be a much cheaper game to get in on instead of full price 60 to 80 bucks. And I think it should have rollback netcode, the one that works, so that even if for whatever reason it doesn't last that long, you could always jump in and find good quality online matches.